Anunnaki Homeworld by Jason M. Breshears. Read by Kevin Stevens, also known as Grendel Dark. Archive 1. Existence and Return of Niburu. The world of astronomers is in a state of terrorism, though of a highly attenuated, modernized, devitalized kind. Let an astronomer see something that is not of the conventional, celestial sights, or something that is improper to see, his very dignity is in danger. Charles Fort, 1919, Book of the Damned. The world-famous scholar Zecharia Sitchin began his campaign to inform humankind of the coming of the Anunnaki with the publication of his first work on the subject in 1976, entitled The 12th Planet. This and his following works clearly unveil a complex and rich history of powerful extraterrestrial beings that visited Earth through the agency of their roaming homeworld called Nibiru, a gigantic planet that, according to Sitchin, nears our own planet every 3,600 years. This scholar, able to translate the archaic Sumerian texts, has awakened millions to the possibility that Earth will soon be visited by these beings again. In this work, this author will show that Zecharia Sitchin, a man with a name derived from that of a biblical prophet who foretold of the conditions in the last days, is himself a prophet, whose ministry of divulging information on the Anunnaki actually began exactly 70 years before these alien beings would return to Earth via their vagabond planet in 2046 AD, much sooner than even Sitchin anticipated. 7 years after the 12th planet was released, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory reported that their infrared telescope on the spacecraft IRAS had discovered beyond Pluto an extremely far mystery celestial body. It was said to be about the size of Neptune, or 4 times the size of Earth, and moving in our direction. 6 months later, the planet was again detected. This intriguing discovery was made in the 207th year of the United States, this sum being half a cursed Earth period, which is a system itself derived from the orbital longevity of another planet that Sitchin has never written about, that being planet Phoenix. In this author's prior work, When the Sun Darkens, Orbital History and 2040 AD Return of Planet Phoenix, is explained that there is a smaller planet that orbits the Sun every 138 years, called Phoenix by the ancients, and represented in early Euphratian iconography as a disk with wings. This planet's entire history is independent from that of Nibiru's, and the two planets have often been confused with one another in the interpretations of traditions, myths, lore, and ancient texts. In the same year that these sightings occurred, they were also silenced. It is this author's contention that what was seen was in fact planet Phoenix, which had reached aphelion in 1971 AD, the furthest orbital distance from the Sun, way out in the Kuiper Belt region. When IRAS picked up the image, Phoenix was already in its 12th year back towards Earth on its highly elliptical orbit, to transit between Earth and the Sun in 2040 AD. Though Sitchin and a host of following authors claim this to be evidence of Nibiru, the sighting is actually evidence of Phoenix. As we will see in this work, Nibiru does not orbit along the plane of the ecliptic, nor anywhere near it. In 1983, a think tank began of University of Chicago scientists who gathered evidence of past catastrophes, noting mass extinctions at regular intervals. The research concluded, and the scientists submitted their findings in 1984 to 2 independent research think tanks of astrophysicists and astronomers who sought to analyze and interpret the data. The 2 separate groups arrived at the same conclusions: that our solar system either was once a binary system having 2 stars, or still has a sister star, a dark star known also as a compressed star. The scientists dubbed this dark star as Nemesis, or the Death Star. An interesting tangent needs to be suffered here. In this same year of 1984, China and Britain signed an agreement returning Hong Kong back over to China, with China agreeing to maintain Hong Kong's capitalist system until the year 2047 AD. Do the British know something the Chinese don't? As we will see, after 2046 AD, the world will be a very different place indeed. Though scientists have concluded that Earth's chaotic past is the result of the presence and interactions of a sister star, there have been no official attempt to locate it. The existence of a black star, also called black holes, is not an untenable idea. These compressed stars are created when a normally luminous star's nuclear fuel has been expended, atomic fusion. With no more outward directed pressure, the luminary darkens and begins folding in on itself with intense inward pressure of gravity, resulting in an implosion of the star's mass, forming the beginning of a black hole. Now, this is a traditional physics approach, an abbreviated explanation serving to demonstrate how a star begins dying. However, the actual creation of a black hole may take a phenomenally long time to occur. The darkened star could remain for thousands of years as more as a black shadowy orb. Our own sun may be very close to a dark star, and we would not be able to see it. For telescopes and infrared instruments require that light enter through their lenses, but no light can escape a collapsing dark star due to intense gravitation. Theoretical physics proposes a very radical yet plausible idea. Yet as there exist particles and antiparticles, matter and the elusive dark matter, these subatomic particles, bosons, electrons, neutrinos, protons, positrons, gluons, neutrons, quarks, tachyons, gravitons, and fermions, merely emulate their astronomical and colossal counterparts, luminous stars and dark stars, what were once called frozen stars. These darkened stars are spherical concentrations of mass to such a critical extreme that the space-time around them is warped, so that nothing, including light photons, can escape it. These are, of course, the exact opposite of luminaries that give off light and fill the heavens. These compressed stars are invisible to astronomers because telescopes only see by virtue of escaping photons. Dark stars can come in all sizes, with no way to perceive their existence outside complex and often erroneous mathematical formulae that only take under consideration known variables. What we know of dark stars is still entirely theoretical. But astronomers know that something is out there, for its unseen presence can be seen by the way it affects those things we can study. Everything is connected by gravity. All stars, planets, moons, asteroids, and comets are gravitationally connected to one another and to everything else. The Sun has a center of gravity along its equator, known as the ecliptic plane, the imaginary line through the heavens wherein the planets Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, the asteroid belt, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and other objects like Pluto in the Kuiper belt orbit the Sun. The travel through this plane would be more level in a perfect single star system. But the truth of the matter is that many of our planets move under and above this ecliptic plane. Further, the orbits of the planets are elliptical and do not travel in true circular distances around the Sun, denoting that they are affected by an outside gravitational influence. The orbits of Mercury, Pluto, the asteroids, and comets all have an extreme inclination from the ecliptic plane. The perturbations of the planets Uranus and Neptune absolutely require the presence of a nearby and powerful object gravitationally attracting the outer rim planets in our solar system. Astronomers admit that more than half of the stars we see in the night skies through telescopes are binary systems. Incredibly, most binary systems are differential binaries, two or more stars revolving around one another of entirely different compositions. Now, it must be recognized that any binary system will, by necessity, have two ecliptics, with each star maintaining their own center of gravity along their own equatorial mass. In fact, a vex unto modern scholarship is the recent discovery of a triple system of stars, a trinary, with a gigantic Jupiter-sized planet orbiting the largest of the three stars in a system called HD 188753 in the constellation Cygnus. This triad system is approximately 149 million years away from the Earth, and the stars of this unusual system are 850 million miles from another. From the surface of this huge planet can be seen one bright sun and two faraway smaller stars that shine as the most brilliant of stars. There is no evidence that multiple star systems maintain equal plane ecliptics. That another ecliptic plane intersects our own is further evident by the unusual and thus far unexplained 23-degree angle of the Earth's tilt. As the Earth travels around the Sun, we would expect the planet to roll around its parent star with its axis pointed at a 23 inclination toward the Sun all year long, but this is not the case. For half of the year, our planet's tilt is toward the Sun, while on our elliptical path, the tilt points away from the Sun for half a year and still at 23 degrees. Why is Earth's polar axis not locked in a 90-degree position as it orbits the Sun like Mercury and Venus? Beginning with Earth, and through the other planets of Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, all are tilted. The answer is glaringly evident. Mercury and Venus remain gravitationally locked to their parent star, but Earth, Mars, and everything beyond the asteroid belt is powerfully influenced by the gravitational attraction of a nearby star. The dark star's ecliptic plane intersects directly between the orbits of Venus and Earth, virtually perpendicular to the plane of the Sun's ecliptic upon which we orbit. This fact alone is why the ancient Sumerians called the Anunnaki Homeworld Nibiru, the planet of the crossing, as well as the designation the Fairy, because it was the planet that orbited both stars. The further away from the intersection of the binary ecliptics, the more evidence we see of the dark star's gravitational influence upon our own system. Earth's moon literally rolls around our planet, its far side never seen, and yet, as it travels, approximately every 28 days, it suffers a drag that makes its own path irregular and even, over time, inconsistent. A perfect moon would eclipse the Sun, casting in shadow the exact same regions of Earth time and time again, with such predictive precision that eclipses would be published decades in advance as occurring only alongside a single strip of the Earth's surface. But this does not occur, for the shadow of eclipses travels in winding curves and upon different regions of Earth. We calculate them today because we take into consideration these unusual motions of the Earth and Moon, but the explanation of why we experience these motions is still forthcoming. Even the Moon's presence is a mystery, for it is a different composition than the Earth, and in relation to the planet it orbits. Our Moon is the largest in the entire solar system. Scientists cannot explain how such a colossal satellite could even be there without crashing into Earth. In this author's prior work, When the Sun Darkens, the entire orbital history of a planet known to our ancestors as Phoenix was provided, a planet actually seen by modern astronomers in 1764 AD, when the planet transited between Earth and the Sun and obscured 1/5 of the surface of the fiery orb and was seen by the naked eye. The astronomer Hoffman studied Phoenix and noted with astonishment that it traveled from the north to the south, passing over the ecliptic plane and out of sight. This is exactly where Niburu transits and passes over the ecliptic, directly between Earth and Venus. However, Niburu is of a much more vast size than Phoenix. And unlike Phoenix, Niburu is inhabited. The inclined axis of Earth at 23 degrees, as well as those of the other planets, seem to remain aligned with the dark star's ecliptic plane. Additionally, unlike any other known satellites in our solar system, 2 of Jupiter's moons also orbit it from pole to pole. That a large, dark, opaque body was seen outside our solar system has been documented and subsequently silenced. In the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences 1915-394, we learn that a Professor Barnard discovered such a black body in Cephus. The very next year, in the Astrophysical Journal of 1916, he modified his description to say as a dark nebula. In 1919, Charles Fort, in his Book of the Damned, a critical analysis of scientific observations conveniently forgotten by the establishment, he remarks that this dark companion of the star Algol was not the first time such blackened regions of space were seen and reported. Algol means the ghoul, referring to a hellish creature whose fate was delayed, an undead being like the Anunnaki. Fort wrote, "Our acceptance is that vast celestial vagabonds have been excluded by astronomers, because they have not been seen so very often. The planets steadily reflect the light of the sun. Upon this uniformity, a system that we call primary astronomy has been built up. But now, the subject matter of advanced astronomy is data of celestial phenomena that are sometimes light and sometimes dark, varying like some of the satellites of Jupiter, but with a wider range. However light or dark, they have been seen and reported so often that the only important reason for their exclusion is that they don't fit in." Fort's work is filled with examples of phenomena in our own system that betray the influence of something else. Andy Lloyd has recently published a work entitled Dark Star, wherein he cites Dr. John Anderson, who believes that there is a planet with an orbital period of 700 to 1,000 years that enters our own system perpendicular to the ecliptic. This modern scientist is closer to the truth than either Sitchin, Lloyd, or any known author today concerning the orbital longevity of planet Nibiru. As will be revealed in this work, Nibiru's orbit between both stars is exactly 792 years. Of epic importance is the 2005 discovery and first direct photograph of an exoplanet, the astronomical designation given to planets seen far off that do not orbit any known star. This planet is twice the size of Jupiter, and its distance in 2005 was reported at about 1,000 AUs away. An AU is an astronomical unit, about 93 million miles, the distance from Earth to the surface of the Sun. The most distant official planet in our system is Neptune, at about 30 AUs away from the Sun. As Earth travels around the Sun, it eventually arrives to the opposite side of the luminary, 186 million miles away from where it started 6 months earlier. Thus, Earth travels around the Sun the distance of virtually 3 AUs a year in its orbit. Thus, 70 AUs is not far at all. In fact, the light of the Sun reaches Earth in 8 minutes, traveling at 186,000 miles per second. Past Neptune, sunlight would reach this giant planet 70 AUs away in 9 hours and 20 minutes, which isn't even 1% of a light year. The closest luminaries to our own solar system are Alpha Proxima, which revolves around its sister binary companion star, Alpha Centauri, at 4.2 light years away from our Sun. Jupiter is 318 times the mass of Earth and is 5.2 AUs away from the Sun, orbiting it in just under 12 years. In this time, this massive planet travels around 14 AUs in a solar system believed to span only 30 AUs. 100 AUs is nothing. The Alpha Proxima Centauri system, being 4.2 light years away, is actually 252,000 AUs away, for 1 light year equals 63,000 AUs. In Worlds in the Cosmos, astrophysicists Michael Mayer and Pierre-Yves Frey reveal that gigantic Jupiter-sized planets have been discovered orbiting other suns in vastly irregular elliptical orbits. Exoplanet HD 80606b is over 4 times the size of Jupiter, orbiting around its star Upsilon Andromedae with a periastron on 1.6 AUs, with an orbit taking it out 3.4 AUs away from its sun. Nibiru's elliptical orbit is no longer theoretical, but demonstrative. What do these facts indicate? Again, the evidence is clear. This huge planet is only called an exoplanet because the dark star it orbits has not been scientifically acknowledged, and 70 AUs is so close, much nearer than the dark star, that this recently discovered planet is within our own system. It could not possibly belong to other stars light years away. Niburu will return in 2046 AD, and to assume that a planetary body cannot travel 70 AUs in 41 years from 2005 AD discovery would be ridiculous, considering that Earth itself moves the distance of 3 AUs a year traveling around the Sun. During these 41 years, Earth will have moved over 120 AUs along the ecliptic. Not only is Nibiru moving back towards Earth and the inner system since reaching aphelion in 1680 AD, but its own gravitational influence is being profoundly felt by our planet. In 1831 AD, the North Magnetic Pole was first measured, 151 years after Nibiru began its return journey. In 2006, scientists asserted that the magnetic North Pole has wandered some 500 miles since it was first measured in 1831. The wandering was minute, initially, but in the last few decades, the polar wandering has increased to 25 miles a day. As of 2008, Nibiru is 38 years away. How much more will the magnetic wandering occur before something disastrous happens? Perhaps the unusual climatic changes transpiring around the world today are specifically the result of the approach of Nibiru. Sitchin's studies of the Sumerian records have persuaded him that Nibiru is still inhabited by the Anunnaki, a pre-human race of virtually superhuman beings that visited Earth in the distant past. These beings are actually described in the Book of Revelation, and their contention against mankind is the background for much of the Old Testament and prophetic books. These Anunnaki are the fallen ones, a species of God's creation once loyal to their maker, but anciently banished, their day star darkened, and destined to only periodically visit our system, their planet suffering the forces of entropy as it decays and fragments. Their planet is their prison, and as we will review, Nibiru's own moon became a prison to the kings of the Anunnaki, a lost moon that has also been witnessed by the denizens of Earth. The memory of the Anunnaki and their prison planetoid is the source for some profound mystical traditions and legends that have survived millennia to be recorded by pen and ink. Secretive cults, mystic orders, and diligent antiquarians have for centuries preserved olden pieces of memories of this alien planet and its effects on Earth when the two worlds have nearly collided in passovers of catastrophic magnitude. Sitchin and all of those authors that followed him have done the subject justice and unearthed from the past hundreds of traditions, stories, and ancient sightings that, to mention again, would only be redundant. The following evidence is only what Sitchin and the majority of researchers after him have neglected to mention. Mystical records maintained even today assert that radiant beings from heaven came from a dark red planet, a world of sorrow and cataclysm. The records of Thoth, according to modern occultists, claim that these beings are the spawn of a lower star. One of the most penetrating mystic traditions of this Anunnaki planet was recorded in 1880 AD by the occultist Thomas Burgoyne, whose collection of records and writings is within his Light of Egypt volumes. Burgoyne wrote that there existed an unbroken tradition among mystics that there was a missing planet and that it was pushed out of line of march by disturbing forces, and that it became for a time the prey of disruptive action and ultimately lost form, and is now a mass of fragments. The ring of planetoids between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter indicates to us an empty throne. He also writes that this lost planet is the origin of what he terms as the dark satellite. Burgoyne's mystical tradition seems to be confirmed by an Akkadian cylinder seal that depicts the solar system as having 11 planets. These would be Mercury, Venus, the Moon, Mars, the lost planet, asteroid belt, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Earth, and Nibiru. The Akkadian seal depicts a large planet between Mars and Jupiter, where today lies an immense strewn ring of asteroids. The size of this strange planet on the seal is comparable to Jupiter, and it dwarfs Earth considerably. This asteroid belt is not Nibiru, but the residual of Phoenix, which orbits every 138 years ever since it was shoved out of its orbital belt in 4309 BC, c. when the sun darkens. Phoenix is heavily fractured, and when it transits between Earth and the sun, it bombards our world with detritus, dusts, and cometary fragments. This information on the planets was evidently known in remote antiquity quite widely, for it is also represented upon a star chart of the Egyptian city of Thebes. This Theban chart shows all the known planets in our system, each symbolized with a bark, a boat representing its trajectory around the sun, like Jason on the Argo around the zodiac. The planets of the inner solar system have barks because their orbits were known to the Egyptians, but the outer planets were not designated with barks because their motions were not known. The most intriguing aspect of this Theban knowledge was the fact that an additional bark of great size is depicted that conveys to us another planetary body with an extremely long orbital path. Some researchers like to believe that this chart identifies Pluto, but this is probably not the case. The planet seen in the Theban depiction may be of Phoenix. Pluto is 3 times smaller than our moon and is so far away, varying between 2.8 to 4.6 billion miles as it orbits, that even the Hubble Space Telescope has only provided us blurred images. The great bark of this Theban astronomical chart would be Niburu. It appears that the ancients would have us know that Niburu does not orbit the sun, as other planets do. It is highly elliptical and not on the sun's ecliptic. If it moved along the ecliptic, no matter how far, it would have been detected and recorded by modern astronomers. Very few stargazers pay attention to the stellar regions away from the plane of the ecliptic, because it is here within this belt in the sky that the sun and moon traverse, as well as the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and the outer rim worlds. The zodiac lies along this ecliptic belt. Probably the greatest deterrent to the discovery of this lost planet is due to its presence in the far southern heavens, which is not visible from anywhere north of the Earth's equatorial regions. Even Zecharia Sitchin has written that Niburu would be seen from the southern heavens first, and would ascend from below the solar system. The leaders of the scientific world for the past few centuries have been in Europe, Russia, the United States, Canada, China, and Japan, and none of these regions can view the southern heavens. In classical and more ancient times, astronomers viewed the depths of space from the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Near East, India, and China, and still the southern circumpolar stars could not be seen. The Great Pyramid site is 30 degrees north of the equator. Only from geographical areas south of the equator can the southern regions of space be viewed. This is the deep, the abyss of the Sumerians from which the Anunnaki emerged. Burgoyne's writings are unique enough for they were published 96 years prior to Sitchin's. Burgoyne wrote that wicked beings still reside within this dead planet, as well as within its former moon, known as the Dark Satellite. He says that the Dark Satellite is inhabited by beings possessing the highest forms of cunning and intelligence, who are the producers of the greatest portion of suffering and misery which afflicts humanity. Also, the rulers of the Dark Satellite mercilessly distort every arcane truth into theological dogma of partial error, causing it to assume in the human mind the delusive form of the externals of truth and logic, and corrupt truth in every form wherein it struggles to become manifest on earth. These records are stunning, for Burgoyne had no access to the Sumerian texts Sitchin studied, nor is there any evidence Burgoyne read Sumerian or even heard the term Anunnaki. Hardly anything was known at this time about Sumer, and the texts that had been excavated were still in museum basements awaiting translation. His information truly came from traditions and sources passed down outside the realm of modern scholarly media. Another incredible parallel is mentioned inadvertently by Burgoyne. Sitchin wrote that the Anunnaki came to Earth in need of gold to prolong their existence. Burgoyne wrote that the evil inhabitants of the Dark Satellite benefit by their wicked activities against humanity, which provides them a means of prolonging their external existence upon the Earth. For many of the former residents of the Dark Satellite have descended to Earth already. Burgoyne links the mystic traditions of the Dark Satellite to the elder prophecies of the Vikings, known as the Ragnarok, Nordic predictions of the last days which will be ushered in by the return of an unknown planet. Other Ragnarok fragments concern the return of great comets, which will be seen in this book, that will accompany Niburu and even periodically break away from its surface to enter into their own solar orbits, as Nibiru departs our own system. This planet, destined to return to the inner system, was known by many names. It was called Tiamat and Marduk in the Near East, Typhon by the Greeks and Egyptians, Flying Serpent, Zixnalikon by the Maya, Antichon by the Pythagoreans, the Dark Star by the Hopi, who expect it to appear in the sky to initiate the end of the Fourth World, the Dark Sun of other Native America groups, and the Black Sun of the alchemists. After reviewing the mystical echoes of Burgoyne's research, perhaps one should be a little less critical of some similar modern satanic literature, further substantiating the existence of the evil Anunnaki. In the Testimony of the Mad Arab, as recorded in the occult book entitled Necronomicon, Tome of the Names of the Dead, we read, "May the gods be ever merciful to thee. May thou escape the jaws of the Maskim, and vanquish the power of the Ancient Ones. And the gods grant thee death before the Ancient Ones rule the earth once more." The Maskim is a Sumerian ideogram for a race of demons in olden tablet texts, often linked to the Anunnaki. The Ancient Ones are demonic lords of the Anunnaki known in Sumerian and Babylonian texts and the Book of Revelation as the Seven Kings. They were present on Earth and began a reign over mankind in 2839 BC before the Flood, their regnal period cut off by the deluge in its 600th year. The Necronomicon text appears to be derived from the Babylonian Enuma Elish tablets concerning the Anunnaki. Such a race of imprisoned beings is also the subject of the 5th century BC traditions of the Zervanites of Persia, who held that the star constellations were friendly to mankind, but the planets are actually chained demons. Continuing with the Necronomicon, we read in the book of the Conjuration of the Watchers, "And it is said that some of the race lie waiting for the Ancient Ones to once more rule the cosmos, that they may be given the right hand of honor, and that such as these are lawless. This is what is said. The Watchers are the Anunnaki, this arcane title given to them in the Enochian works, the biblical Book of Daniel, and the Dead Sea records discovered in 1947 AD. They descended among men in the epoch before the deluge and took the daughters of men to create a hybrid species known in the scriptures as the Nephilim, the sons of the Watchers, a race of giants. As revealed in the writings left behind by Enoch and the Hebraic Jubilees text, the Watchers rebelled against the Creator over the issue of mankind, and in turn, God made men the weapon by which he would bring judgment against the Anunnaki. This is further reflected in the Necronomicon's Magan text, reading that, "Man is the key by which the gate of Ixoxoc may be flung wide, by which the ancient ones seek their vengeance upon the face of the earth, upon the offspring of Marduk, mankind. For what is new came from that which is old, and what is old shall replace the new, and once again the ancient ones shall rule upon the face of the earth." Sumerian and Babylonian scholars are not unaware of these same traditions, for they fill up hundreds of archaic Euphratean texts. Our ancestors remembered the regions of the 7 kings of the Anunnaki and their 600-year reign over mankind before the flood, a subject provided in depth in this author's work entitled Descent of the 7 Kings, Anunnaki Chronology, and 2052 AD Return of the Fallen Ones. If this thesis is to have merit, then there must be instances when in times of remote antiquity, as well as more contemporary times, the Anunnaki homeworld had passed close to Earth with its attendant satellites and comets, affected our own planet, and was recorded by men. There must be a pattern that remains fixed over the passage of millennia, over the distances of time and culture to support the rich and global traditions of such a wandering planetary body. Critics beware, for these standards will be met herein abundantly. Thousands of historical writings unveil nothing of Nibiru's orbital longevity. Sitchin, Burgoyne, nor any of the host of researchers and authors since them have provided an orbital chronology of the Anunnaki world. But unto the reader it is now rendered, through a lithic tapestry of tablet inscriptions, rock calendars like Stonehenge, and the chronoliths of the Great Pyramid. Among the most startling proofs of the return of Niburu in 2046 AD is found within the amazing mathematical framework of the Mayan long count calendar. Unto you is opened a door into the near future. Sitchin lit for us a torch, and now we carry it through this threshold of the present to study what will come to be from the records of the past.